Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm B.
And I'm Zach.
And this week we read chapters 12 and 13 of The Lost Hero.
And I have to say, B, these are some of the shortest chapters. Thank God we decided not to go chapter by chapter anymore, because we would be like, well, that was done. Because you know what's a problem when you have a short chapter when you think your ebook's broken?
I had the same sensation where I saw like the scroll bar was extremely short and I was like, is this... Because I've had problems before with my ebook where it was like weirdly cut off and I thought that there was something wrong with it. But no, this first chapter is kind of just a dream sequence and it's very short. And we've kind of discussed that like there doesn't seem to be a hard and fast rule when it comes to like these Rick Riordan dream sequence vision type of scenes. Like sometimes they're a like chapter in and of themselves. Sometimes they're sandwiched in another chapter, and I kind of like never really know how that works.
They're very fast and loose. It's hard because it's like, what's the parameter of like a chapter? Because normally like, I've heard like many rules of thumbs when it comes to like chapters, like, oh, you should have them at least be a minimum of 1,000 words or 3,000 words, depending on which book you're doing.
Right, but
Here,
stylistically,
like,
sometimes you really want a short chapter, you know what I mean? Like that, like, hammers home a certain point you're trying to make or whatever. Yeah, so it's...
There's different rules of thumbs, there's different schools of thoughts. Like, some of my favorite chapters is... I know there's one, The Name of the One, where it's pretty much like, Quoth went to sleep, and the next chapter is, he slept very well, and then it cuts to the next chapter. Like, it's a joke.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like that can make an interesting point or whatever. With this, it's like, I don't know, I think Rick Riordan probably just like pre-structured it to be each character has 2 chapters and then it goes on to the next character. Does that continue throughout the rest of the book? It seems like it has worked that way thus far.
I haven't looked ahead in the book in that way, but I'm going to assume that's what it's like, because every 2 chapters we get a new POV, which seems like a really good structure, though. It's really confusing here is because Jason's 2 chapters could have just been combined into 1 chapter. They could have added another scene, but it's supposed to be like two chapters per character for POV, and it switches through like almost like a rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just sort of like was set in his ways about that format and didn't necessarily decide that it was 1 chapter, but it could have easily been. I mean, in this case, it's really a very short dream sequence, and then the second chapter about Jason here is him, I guess, reckoning with that dream, discussing a little bit with Annabeth, kind of unpacking what it all means.
Jason's like really like getting into his dream journal right now. Dear journal, I had this weird dream with giant wolves.
Oh, so do you want to, I guess, discuss what I named these 2 chapters?
Yes, I am so excited. You have not told me what they are, and you said that they were really punny before we started to record.
They are extremely punny. So I think you and I both thought of chapter title names because, as we've discussed, for some reason, during the week where you don't have to pick a chapter title, they just come to you. But the one I chose was extremely punny, which is Jason Remembers His Family Tree.
Jason remembers his family. Oh, 1 second, B. Okay, everybody, 1 second here. Is it because Thalia was a tree?
Yeah, everybody groan, collectively groan. If you know the chapters, of course. The funny thing is, I originally just thought of this chapter title because obviously we find out a little something about Jason's past, who he is, we find out his last name, and ultimately that he's related to Talia, that they both share the last name Grace, therefore that is his sister. All of a sudden he remembers this because of his dream and partly because of his conversation with Annabeth. And I just thought, oh, he remembers a part of his family tree. That's a normal phrase. And of course, Talia was a tree, so it kind of just... I was like, I have to choose that. That actually feels very authentically Rick Riordan, how dad joke it is, so I think it worked out pretty well.
Well, B, here's some ASMR for you guys, because I just got the joke when you said it.
Yeah, no, it's very bad.
That one's really good. You know what mine was that I thought of?
Yeah. You said something about a lightning pun.
Yeah, it's a lightning pun. Jason gets a shocking revelation.
It's pretty close to the same idea, I'd say. You were just going with
lightning.
A lightning pun instead of a tree pun, but it's the same kind of idea because the shocking revelation is referring to the same thing.
tree puns, lightning puns. All you have to do is go nuts when it comes to these.
Yeah, there's a lot of puns that you can make about the Graces, apparently, because even the she-wolf in Jason's dream makes a pun about that. But I think maybe we should get into the summary of this first chapter.
Yeah, let's do that. So the first summary, this is going to be very simple, everybody. Get your notes ready. Is Jason has a weird dream where he's in this mystical, like, ruinous place that may or may not be Northern California, where he meets a gigantic she-wolf named Lupa, who pretty much tells him that if they don't save Hera, pretty much the whole world is doomed. And then he wakes up. That's pretty much the whole dream.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, there's some minor details. There's like these spires that grow up from the ground, and there's something trapped in one of them. She indicates that she doesn't really care about Hera, but like their fate depends on it. There's some sort of indication that he was raised by this wolf, which we don't exactly know what that means.
If we're looking at like Roman, the origin
right,
myth of
course,
Rome,
this is pretty obvious, right? Like that was the one. I mean, I'm a real dum-dum when it comes to mythology, but I do know the story of Romulus and Remus, which is like the mythological founding of Rome story, wherein a wolf raises two twins, Romulus and Remus, and then the one Romulus is the one who ends up founding Rome, hence the name Rome. La di da di da. It's pretty obvious that we're seeing parallels here. We've seen the connection before. Jason has to ancient Rome as opposed to ancient Greece. Again, haven't quite articulated why that's the case. In the next chapter, we'll talk a little bit more about his connections to Rome when he talks to Annabeth. But, I mean, it's pretty obvious the parallels here with the she-wolf. He is much like Romulus and Remus. I, again, don't know what this means exactly. I guess we'll find out.
So what you're telling me, B, is the original creation myth of Rome is furry fan fiction. Got it.
I mean, yeah, the original furries in many ways.
No,
I mean, like
stop.
The origin story. Of course, a lot of people might know this if they're of the Harry Potter generation, wherein Remus Lupin is a werewolf, which is sort of like naming someone Wolfie McWolferstein.
Yeah, exactly. And even in this chapter, we have a lot of origins of like Latin roots because we have the new thing with Squar. They actually kind of explain Jason's tattoo. That's more in the next chapter. We're already kind of like bouncing around almost because it's hard to like talk about this chapter and the next chapter without talking them together. Though the one thing that I love about this dream sequence is that it feels actually most like a dream sequence because obviously, because this is a fantasy story with mythology, the wolf talks. Because why not? I love it.
Yeah, the wolf talks, which is like, it's one of those things that you very quickly adjust to, I guess. In this fantastical world, he's like, oh, I guess I'm here, and there's a wolf, and she's very large, and seems to know me, and won't tell me who I am, which is another extremely frustrating thing about this entire scene, is that she seems to know who he is, and wants his help, but, like, won't exactly, like, directly say who he is, except for, ultimately, a very punny, weird, like, cryptic line that she says.
Again, this is Rick Riordan just having fun doing a dad joke, because it's supposed to be. It's weird because you'd have to know already that Thalia Grace, like her last name is Grace, to understand the joke. But even then, saving Grace is just it's like a blanket term that a lot of people use.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the concluding sentences of this chapter are, you are our saving grace as always. The she-wolf curled her lip as if she just made a clever joke. Do not fail, son of Jupiter. So, haha, get it, Grace, and it echoes in his mind, and that, I guess, plants the seed, like Inception or something, that he remembers who he is.
The one thing that I really like about this chapter as well, B, is how Rick Riordan adds, like, this super spooky atmosphere to this whole place. Like, the whole place is crumbling, there's vegetation everywhere. My favorite part about this, Jason looks into, like, a pond or a pool, and you can't see how deep it is. There's just, like, this thin layer of mist that surrounds it, and I think from a like atmospherics point of view, I think that's such a great little thing for this dream sequence, because normally when we get dream sequences in Percy Jackson, like we have like this weird thing where they explain so much, but here they explain so little, which I like. This is like if we look at the other dream sequences, at least in Percy Jackson, it's like Percy Jackson sees the villain's plan the entire time. Like he would have seen like Luke been like, I have Hera, ha ha ha.
Yeah, them talking about, exactly. It's not that. It's much more.
It's subdued. That's what I like about that.
In this case, yeah, we kind of have a hint about where this is. There are redwood trees. There are warm, red-looking rocks. There's an old building in the middle of a redwood forest. ruins of a stone mansion, crumbling doorway, a courtyard. It's basically probably a mansion somewhere in like the Pacific Northwest, like Northern California, that area.
Yeah, who knows who it belongs to? Maybe it's just Wolfman or
Wolferson,
something.
yes.
I don't know. But they call it the Wolf House.
Wolfenstein, obviously.
The Wolfenstein. Oh no,
Yeah.
I actually would like that if it was BJ Blazkowicz's house. That'd be great.
Yeah, and a bunch of like very pixely Nazis living in there.
Well, now they're in the HD era. Have you ever played the new Wolfenstein games? They are so much fun.
I haven't played the old ones for that matter, but I know the gist. So yeah, very, very short chapter. It gives us a few hints about things. It mentions the enemy has chosen this place to awaken her most powerful son, the giant king, Lupa said. Our sacred place where demigods are claimed, the place of death or life, the burned house, the house of the wolf.
Yeah, what was the name of that guy? Wasn't it like enchiladas? Oh no, that's the Mexican food.
Enchiladas, right? And it's like, it sounds so much like enchiladas. What, like, truly, okay, we have determined this multiple times. What is with Greek names sounding like delicious Mexican treats? Because empusas sound 100% like a pupusa meets an empanada, a delicious pocket of flavored meat in this case. And it sounds so much like an enchilada. I hear enchilada in my mind. So the great giant enchilada, I'm just gonna call him that. He's a grande enchilada, I guess, technically.
B, I'm so excited to meet Crunchwrap Supreme. That's gonna be so great.
The great, what is it? A hexagon? An octagon?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Of deliciousness.
I don't remember how many sides the Crunchwrap Supreme has. Whatever.
I can't wait for like the what is it? The chalupa.
The chalupa. Yeah. I'm trying to think who would be.
Wait, so like when they have to fight like guacamole, do they have to pay an extra drachma to get it on the side?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like the ultimate boss is like going to be like a grande burrito.
A carne asada
you have to
burrito.
Break it in half
Carne
and
asadas.
remove its guacamole. I don't know. It's like maybe we just feel like it sounds like Mexican food because Spanish has like a Latin root to it or something. Is that why it sounds so much in our minds? Like, because that's like the most familiar language to us that we would know because we live in America. I don't know.
B, just for a second, just imagine if a Crunchwrap Supreme went back to ancient Rome and Julius Caesar himself had it.
They wouldn't be able to. Don't even get me started on Baja Blast. If you brought Baja Blast to the ancient Greeks, they would not be able to comprehend it. Their heads would just explode. They'd be like, we've never even seen this color before. This is too much.
I always love like the meme B. It's like a single flavor blasted Dorito has more flavor than any peasant in the 1400s would have ever experienced in their entire life.
No, it's true. Really, the scientists asked if they could, but they never stopped to ask if they should.
Oh man! Now that they brought back Dunkaroos, it's almost like Jurassic Park. They never thought,
it's true.
Even though they could, they never thought if they should.
Did you hear about the anti-COVID-19 plan that the set of Jurassic Park or Jurassic World has?
What is that?
What, like that they like invested a bunch of money in like hand sanitizer stations and stuff, and then everyone's like, "Wow, if only that there was like a parable about how you shouldn't like continue a dangerous entertainment venture just to make money." But we spared no expense. Like it's truly the most meta thing ever.
The problem with like that argument B is like only none of the parks, Jurassic World's the only one where the park actually opened up. Jurassic Park, that movie started off with pretty much it was a test to see if it worked. Like they brought in experts,
and it didn't. It didn't work.
And then the sequel movie that was actually on Site B, which was like where they actually bred the dinosaurs. It wasn't like an actual park. And then the third movie was another place. I can't remember which place that one was.
I've only seen the first Jurassic Park and then the subsequent Jurassic Worlds. But anyway, we're getting truly sidetracked.
Yes, B, we actually are. I have to blame all the Mexican food Tyrannosaurus rexes, the Taquidosaurus.
Mm-hmm,
that sounds so delicious.
Anyway, so the scientist,
on.
What were we talking about? Baja Blast, Crunchwrap Supreme. Yes, the giant enchilada, whatever his name is. Can we just call him enchilada? I don't know how to pronounce ancient Greek. We're just going to go with that because I know it's going to make us hungry, but I keep looking up his name and then I immediately forget how to pronounce it. And we're just going to go with this and you're going to have to accept it if you're listening.
Yes, he's just imagine a gigantic enchilada. So pretty much we find that he's kind of like the the supervillain of the story, though not really,
Or I
because
guess
there's another.
his mom is the supervillain, right? Which is like kind of par for the course in this universe. There's usually a villain, but then there's like a greater villain who's like pulling all the strings and manipulating the smaller villains.
Yeah, and also like when it comes to like these series that are technically like sequel series, like the villain has to be 1,000 times worse than the original villain. And it's like we had Kronos. What's worse than Kronos? Who knows?
Right. So we don't know. We just know that it's a she. And she is the mother of this giant whose name sounds like enchilada. That's kind of all we know. We know that it's, I guess, a woman or whatever. Maybe a goddess. There was a brief moment of questioning whether that's Hera, but it can't be Hera because Hera's the one who's trapped. It's kind of complicated because, I mean, the prophecy says something about if you free Hera, then that'll be what causes sort of destruction to happen. So there's a lot of confusing messaging going on. We're getting bits and pieces here and there. There's sort of like multiple puzzles being put together all at once, and they kind of haven't fully formed a big picture yet. I doubt it's going to really come together very soon because this is an entire series, but hopefully we'll have at least one piece of the puzzle complete by the end of this book.
There's a lot of setup. I feel like when it comes to this series, it's a slow burn, especially with this first book. Like normally we would have been already on the quest at this point. And it's kind of one of the things, like there's now these branching paths. We now have like multiple POV characters. That's like one thing I've noticed as well is like when it comes to like books with multiple POV characters, because you have multiple characters, you're not focusing on one character, the book tends to get a little slower because you have to like reintroduce and have new concepts for each character, and then they have like their branching paths. Here it's a little different because I like that we're getting set up to like this going on this quest, which is going to be an interesting quest because it's still going to be taking place in the Americas, but it might not be in the United States, which I think is so interesting to me.
Right. Okay. So we're gonna, I guess, move on to the next chapter because there's a bit more.
Yeah, because there's not really much that happens in this dream sequence other than we get pieces of information.
We get a few hints here and there, but really, ultimately, the important chapter is the next one because they unpack all of the dream, which is kind of a satisfying thing in the grand scheme of a universe where a lot of secrets are being kept. A lot of people, in the case of Jason, doesn't really know who he is, so it's less that he's keeping a secret and more that his brain does not contain information. So I guess he's kind of grasping at straws. He's willing to share whatever information he can get. Meanwhile, Piper and Leo are living their own sort of weird double lives where they're kind of hiding a lot from other people. But in this case, it's kind of satisfying. You know, Jason decides to share what he experienced in the dream with Annabeth. Well, I guess I guess now is the time to sum up the second chapter.
So Jason wakes up within a fright and sees that he is now in Zeus's cabin, and he discovers a secret of Thalia, Grace, and the trio of the original, like Luke and Annabeth, as well as what ends up happening is Annabeth comes in and they have a conversation trying to interpret the dreams. And guess what? Turns out Jason's a Grace.
I think I mentioned this to you where I wasn't like 100% surprised that Jason was related to Talia because we know that he's the son of Zeus. So it's kind of like, or I guess Jupiter. Are those the same thing? Let's not think about it too hard. But like, it's complicated. But regardless, I had seen the name Grace and Jace before, or Grace and Jace. Woo, that's some real dyslexia that just happened there. Jason Grace. I had seen the name Jason Grace before as his character name. I don't know where, maybe a wiki or something when I was trying to like look up chapter like sections or something like that. And it never really struck me as that weird. Maybe I didn't really fully remember that Talia's last name was Grace. Maybe it wasn't that shocking because I knew that he was already the son of Zeus. I don't know. But then the more I thought about it, I realized that last names don't come from your godly parent, obviously. It's not like Zeus has like a last name.
Zeus Skyman?
Yeah, exactly. Zeus Lightningberg. Like, he doesn't have a name.
Oh, that would be good. Was it Poseidon? Would it be Poseidon Buffett?
Yeah, oh my god, that took me a second to register, but now I'm mad. But anyway, exactly. Like, there's no last name that exists in the godly realm, I guess. They all have mononyms. So your last name has to come from your mortal parent, which means Jason and Talia are, I guess, the product of the same godly parent and the same mortal parent as well. So in this case, I guess a mortal mom.
That kind of makes sense because if you look at Thalia's mom, she was a movie star. So she has like, when it comes to like movie stars or the people that are really famous, like they have like this interesting cult of personality. And of course, we have the issue of like Zeus was the first to break the Great Pact. So who knows what would have happened with that?
Right. It's kind of interesting because this is not the only time that we've seen an example of a god having I guess a relationship and children with like a famous person or like famous in this universe, because so is Piper's dad. Like there's some sort of like pattern of behavior here where they're like drawn to like powerful or beautiful people.
Well, I think it has to do with like when it comes to people, it's always like that cult of personality. The much more famous and richer you are, kind of like gods are more attracted to that because it's like looking in a mirror.
Which makes a lot of sense actually, because they're all pretty
shallow and they have like the same personalities.
Yeah, they're shallow. They're like very egocentric and like care about image and like how they're perceived and power and all those kinds of things. So it would make a lot of sense that they would be drawn to someone like an actress. So yeah, I guess they share both parents, which is kind of an interesting premise.
This is also not the first time we've seen this be. Is there another pair of siblings that we've seen of the great gods?
Oh, right. Nico and Bianca, right?
Yeah, so it's not out of the realm of impossibility.
Right, so it's like, oh, I guess like you share a mortal parent. That's just like very interesting to me that like they sort of portray godly parents as being very flighty, so they're like, oh, here's the kid, goodbye, and they kind of leave. So like something very like interesting about the longevity of having at least 2 kids with the same mortal parent. It's sort of like, oh, you stuck around at least 2 years or whatever.
Here's the thing, B, and this is I know Annabeth has talked about this in the last series, is that how she was conceived wasn't the traditional like how someone has a baby. It was more of she was a thought baby, because how in the myth of Athena, she was a thought baby.
Just leapt out of the head. Right. Yeah. So
Well, no, Zeus had like a headache, and how to ail it, someone hit him in the head with a hammer and his skull cracked open and Athena popped out.
Right. So it's kind of a complicated thing determining how demigods are born or whatever. I don't exactly know. They're kind of portrayed as like deadbeat parents in a lot of ways. So I find it very interesting when they have multiple children with the same person.
What does Sally Jackson say? So your dad went out for a Baja Blast and it's been like 7 years.
I don't know. What is with Baja Blast making a return? Well, your dad went out for a pina colada, clearly.
Oh, yeah. You got lost in the rain?
Or a lime in a coconut.
No, that's not Jimmy Buffett. That's someone else.
No, yeah, that is not Jimmy Buffett. But just, it's like a beachy kind of song. Yeah. I don't know.
God only knows what I'll be without you. Oh my God, it's the Beach Boys now.
That's Sally Jackson's song, actually. That's very sad. This took a very depressing turn.
Would it be that or would it be Kokomo?
I mean, it might honestly be the Pina Colada song.
I know we're about to detour, but have you actually listened to that song and how horrible it is?
Oh, no, I was just talking about this yesterday. It's a very messed up song.
It's about 2 people that cheat on each other with themselves.
They do. Yeah, they cheat each other with, they do like a personal ad and then realize it's the person they're already dating. Anyway, that's called a self-own. Regardless, we're getting extremely, extremely distracted. Anyway, this is kind of an interesting interaction between Jason and Annabeth. We have a few revelations. We also have one of these fun little moments. Fun is an interesting word, but anyway, where Jason is perceiving something that us, the audience, at least as people who read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which is that he doesn't know information that we know.
Are we talking about the Luke scene?
Yeah, so he's like looking at pictures in this little alcove in this kind of barren, really cold and impersonal cabin, right? Because the cabin for
It kind of reminds me of like a mausoleum almost.
Yeah, it's like a monument. It's not really a cabin. He doesn't even think there's a bathroom in there. It's just kind of like this empty, sad room that isn't particularly comfortable or welcoming. But he sees this little corner, and it's in a kind of insightful observation he makes where he's like, oh, well, no wonder someone chose this corner, because it's like the one place in the entire cabin where the eyes of Zeus in this like giant statue in the middle of the room isn't bearing down upon you. So that's like very heavy-handed metaphor right there.
Well, there's like that thing. It's like Zeus will always be watching you because he's the god of the sky.
No, truly, he's like Ra's like, I'll be watching you, Wazowski. Like, that's kind of the energy he's bringing to the table.
No, exactly. And also, if we look at, like, Thalia, like, that is her entire life. Because, again, if we look at, her mom, she was pretty much like Zeus in many ways. She died doing her vices, but also at the same time, as a movie star, you don't have any privacy whatsoever.
Oh, that's an interesting parallel. Yeah.
Because there's always the paparazzi. There's always like social media.
Anyway, so he goes to this little corner and sees some pictures, some of which have actually fallen off the wall because they've been there for so long and the tape just sort of gave out. And he's flipping through, and we very clearly know who these people are. He only recognizes Annabeth, but he describes. First, he sees a boy with quote unquote sandy hair. That's very obviously Luke, based on his age difference and his relationship to Annabeth. And then he sees a quote unquote sort of goth looking girl, and he seems to have a connection to her. He's like sort of relating to her as a child of Zeus. He understands that they have some sort of connection. Then when Annabeth shows up, sort of sneaking behind them, and like explains a little bit about Luke. Again, we know the whole backstory, which again, not necessary to get into in this story, because if you wanted to know that, you would go read Percy Jackson. But, she just sort of hints at, oh, well, that was Luke. He's dead now. Jason is like, oh, that's awkward. When he brings it up, sort of wonders to himself, oh, maybe Annabeth liked some boy other than Percy Jackson before she started looking for him. Of course, we know that she didn't exactly like Luke in that capacity, but, whatever. They had some sort of relationship before he decided to die.
What I like about this whole scene, B, is that I love that how deliberate, like, Rick Riordan's taking the chance of pretty much being like, this is its own series. It gets to breathe on itself, because we don't have that moment where pretty much Annabeth explains the whole backstory of Luke. She's pretty much, he's dead, and they kind of like move on. That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy the series, is because you have that aspect of, you could read The Last Olympian, you can read all of Percy Jackson and get Luke's entire backstory. And it's weird to think about it this way, but the way that we're reading this book, we almost feel kind of godly, because we know this about this one person, but yet the other characters don't, and you can actually infer a lot of things into characters' motivations.
Right. I mean, I kind of think it's more poignant in a way that, like, she vaguely mentions it, and then Jason understands it's like something pretty heavy, but we don't get into it. Like, that is more mysterious and interesting, even if you already know what it is, but you're like, oh, right, like the full weight of understanding what that is hits you just by her saying, oh, well, he's dead now, Well,
it's also realistic because, like, depending on who you are, doesn't matter. Like, some people take, trauma differently. It's like they just, like, pretty much will just be like, Annabeth, like, I moved on with my life. Like, he's dead. We're going to put it that way. He died, quote unquote, a hero's death, and we're going to move on. I'm not going to tell this, this stranger my entire life's woes.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting scene. Jason seems to be more forthcoming than a lot of characters tend to be in these books. Where
is that because he's older?
I don't think it's that. Like I was saying before, I think it's because he's lost his memory, so he's trying anything to understand who he is. So he's trying to share information with Annabeth to sort of collaborate, or I guess corroborate, information about who he is and try to figure out, like, okay, what else do you know? So he shares all of this about his dream, about the she-wolf, about what she said about Hera, about the pun Grace, which then all of a sudden it sort of washes over him. Of course, his sister is Talia, and then she, Annabeth is like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. She never mentioned a brother. It's kind of a complicated, weird plot twist there. We kind of know that Annabeth knows something about him too, but we don't exactly get any more information from her.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this, and the way I was looking at this as well was through the trope of someone that has amnesia. We're kind of like, they don't know who they are. Like, I've read enough books where it's like someone doesn't remember who they are, where it's like there's like this weird type of growing pain you get because it's like, who am I? And then they finally figure out who they kind of are. But what's different about this approach is that Jason isn't like bumbling, because there are moments where he remembers things. There, like, even in this chapter, like when he finds out like the saving grace part, like there was something in his brain that just like triggered that he realized, oh wait, this is my sibling. Like there's like, even though his memory's erased, there's certain things he can still remember because he isn't going to be totally incompetent, which I like that about how Rick Riordan's treating Jason's character compared to like other. I can't even think of a couple off the top of my head, but I've read so many books where someone can't remember who they are and then they're just completely incompetent.
Right. No, exactly. He's not an idiot. He just doesn't know who he is. And he also, like, it makes sense that he's so desperate to understand that he would share information. Like, I think it would be extremely aggravating for him to like stand there and talk to Annabeth and withhold this information for no reason, because I found that a lot in Percy Jackson, where Percy had kind of no reason to hide what he thought in his dream or what he had witnessed in some sort of prophecy or vision, because ultimately it wasn't like a secret. It didn't negatively affect someone in any way. It's just either way he was like interrupted or he felt uncomfortable. There was always sort of like some weird excuse, but I find it a lot more satisfying when Jason shares this information and yet he still can't quite articulate what's happening. Like, he learned some things. He remembered the thing about his sister, of course, about Talia, but ultimately Annabeth can't share some of the things that she knows because of this, I guess, the ethos that she subscribes to along with Chiron, wherein it's actually worse to know too much about your prophecy, because the more you know about what's going to happen, the more you try to avoid it. And it's kind of like the Oedipus thing, where in trying to avoid your fate, you cause it to happen kind of thing. So it's actually easier to just like go very laissez-faire and let people figure out things for themselves.
Yeah, and even like when it comes to Percy Jackson, when he withheld things, the most annoying part about it was that I understood like the reason why Rick Riordan was doing it was to raise the tension and have like, you know, let's make this as dramatic as possible. But then, like, when they release it, it's like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? Like, well, you could have. It would have been like 1,000 times easier. Whereas Jason here, because he has to work in a team, like, his entire, pretty much the second that you figure who he is out, which is the first chapter of the book, he's always been working with a team. So he doesn't have those perceived notions of like grandeur. Like, this has to be my burden alone. It isn't like when it comes to Percy, who's like the hero that is quote unquote prophesized. It isn't like that at all, which I find interesting about Jason is that he's very much a team player, which is the exact opposite of Zeus, who is kind of like, I'm so grand, I can do everything by myself.
Right. He's like very centered on his ego and doesn't want to collaborate and stuff.
Even if we look at like Thalia, she's the exact same way as Zeus in many ways.
In some ways, though, I think Thalia ultimately relinquishes that part of her because she becomes a part of Hunters of Artemis. Yeah, so
that's why she changes, is because she becomes a Hunter of Artemis.
I really like the way that this chapter portrays like the parallels between Talia and Jason. I mean, obviously they would have some sort of connection as siblings. In some ways it kind of is frustrating and sad that Nico and Bianca didn't really get a chance to like flesh out an interesting like brother sister dynamic, because like we don't really get a lot of like sibling relationships in these books. So I'm kind of like looking forward to see how that plays out.
Now, here's the golden drachma question here when it comes to this, is that because that Jason's now, you know, everyone said that he should be dead, do you think Thalia is going to actually accept him as her brother? Because here's the thing, she's a Hunter of Artemis. She has to swear off boys. I'm not talking about in the romantic sense. I'm talking about like
in an emotional sense. Yeah.
She's not going to have the ability to be her, you know, his sister,
because she's like a hunting machine.
She's in charge of this group. Yeah, she's like the head of this whole group of people. She isn't just a hunter. She is the Hunter of Artemis.
I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work exactly. And I'm sure that's going to be kind of heartbreaking in a way, because he's trying so hard to figure out who he is. And in some ways, this piece of his identity is like some level of reassurance, right? It like gives him some grounding and like someone he can relate to and recognizes like, oh, you and I are the same.
But you know what this ethos kind of reminds me of?
What?
There's like this old like commercial where it's this old guy with a fishing line and a dollar bill.
Uh-huh.
You just put happiness on it. It's like, oh, you almost got it. You almost got your happiness.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I feel. Jason is like a very introspective character, I feel like. Maybe it's like part of the fact that he doesn't know who he is, so he's constantly sort of reflecting on how he feels. But, you know, he's in this empty cabin. He's looking around. He finds Talia's bedroll, which is like dusty from disuse for several years. And he's like reflecting on what he feels like as the son of Zeus. You know, he feels very alone. He feels very alienated. When he finds out that she became a Hunter of Artemis, he wonders to himself, oh, I wonder if there's an equivalent for guys. He wants like some sort of like team to be a part of, some sort of belonging to have outside of this relation to his dad, who kind of like, he was claimed him, but he doesn't feel close to him. He doesn't even really understand who he is as a person. So it's, I don't know, there's obviously some stuff going on in general with demigods, I guess, where they feel like they need some sort of sense of purpose or belonging. and especially, I guess, of the big three, where they're kind of like, I don't know, alone in this cabin. Like, at the very least, you know, Leo has an entire cabin full of demigods who have the same godly parent as him. They are related somehow. It's sort of like a family. Well, he doesn't really have that. Jason's alone in a room with a giant statue of Zeus.
The way that I think about this bee is the same way that I think about the parallels between Percy Jackson, like when he first came to camp, where he's, you know, the one child of the, you know, the big three. He's the original one for Poseidon because Thalia was, you know, dead at that point. Was that you have that alienation, you have like that thing of grandeur, but the difference though is that Poseidon was part of the big three, but then we have a child of Zeus who's kind of like the equivalent of the king of the gods, almost. Where this is a little different, and I like that when it comes to Jason's point of view is that there's parts, like my favorite part about this is like he felt, I can't remember the quote off the top of my head, but he was like, you know, I had to put on like a brave face, but inside I felt scared. He has to have his appearance to be one way, but like inside he's just like, I don't know what to do with my life because, you know, this is I'm about to do the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme that I'm not going to. It was like his whole world got flipped upside down.
Upside down.
Yeah. I love that Jason doesn't have like an ego, like he doesn't have like these ideas of grandeur. He just wants to reclaim who he is.
No, it doesn't even seem like he wants to be a hero. He doesn't want to like save the world. He doesn't even seem all that. Like, he doesn't remind me of Percy in the same way, where Percy has like some sort of dream sequence like this that says he's like a part of this prophecy, and he's all like, all right, let's go. I'm going to defeat this. I'm going to, you know, be the hero of this story, which it's kind of ironic that he ends up not exactly being the hero of his own story in his own series. But with Jason, he's not really concerned about, you know, I mean, saving the world. He obviously knows he has to, or at least be a part of it. But so much of his story has to do with figuring out who he is, which, I mean, he still doesn't know. We don't know. He's the son of Jupiter. Like, there's something Roman going on. He has this tattoo, which Annabeth does kind of explain, where, like, it's the motto of...
Yeah, he has the, it's Squarby. I'm about to butcher it. It's Senatus Procluus Romanus.
Right, which is the Senate and the people of Rome, right? Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it means. And also that he has like these lines, like these 12 lines that look like barcodes, maybe is how many years he's been there, or, you know, because obviously he probably came to where he was when he was 3, because he's got 12. And there's more mystery because there's also the part where like he like takes off his shirt and he puts on the new Camp Half-Blood shirt, and his brain just like, you should not be doing this whatsoever. Like,
right. There's something going on where he's still not quite exactly welcome in Camp Half-Blood, or as, I guess, a Greek demigod, which is like, I guess, the opposite feeling that Percy has, right? Because Percy is also a loner, like many demigods, and then he comes to this camp and he feels welcome and like he's finally a part of something, even though he is like alone in his cabin or whatever. But like there is like this sense of camaraderie, like he's a part of this same thing. But Jason is different. There's something about him that is different even from Thalia that we haven't quite articulated yet. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means that he's connected to ancient Rome. Like there's something happening here, but I can't figure out what it is.
Oh, maybe we'll find these answers on this journey, because if I'm going to use a very punny thing, all roads lead to Rome sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, I guess so. Or I guess all chapters. There's so many mysteries happening concurrently. And I think because we keep sort of going in shifts from character to character, there's no like real moment of satisfaction we've had. You know, we go from finding this little bit about Jason, but then we're already on to the next character. We won't follow up on this bomb drop about Jason's sister until at least like 4 chapters from now. So who knows?
We also get another piece of information, which I love, and that's really cool, which is that they don't know where to start first, and Annabeth's like, oh, you should go find, like, the wind god. He'll be able to tell you where, like, you know, Dylan was, and maybe whoever you find, they'll lead you to, like, where Hera is, and like, oh, you guys have to go to Canada, to Quebec. And I love that we're going to Canada.
Right, yeah, so this is what we alluded to talking about the last chapter, that the seat of Western civilization is where all the Greek gods go. We've kind of discussed the vague function of all that, but it's not just America, as in the United States. It's also, I guess, North America in general, maybe possibly the rest of the Americas. We haven't really gone there.
America's hat and Canada's pants.
Exactly. So Canada, we're going to Quebec, I guess, because they need to meet the North Wind, because he's like one of the several wind gods that will lead them to this monster, which is the advice that Annabeth gives, where she says, we'll follow the monsters and you'll be able to, I guess, trace where they're coming from, which, the storm monsters are what Jason first fought at the Grand Canyon. So maybe if we figure out where they came from, we'll figure out who this lady villain is and who her son is and what's going on.
So pretty much what they have to do is they have to follow the Poutine Road.
Basically, yeah.
Oh man, so B, are you excited? How's your French? Is it good?
Je parle français un petit peu.
Oh no,
meaning not good.
Yeah, so very very bad. I don't know French, but we're gonna be going to Canada, which they're going to one of pretty much the oldest settlement in Canada is Quebec. I might be getting this wrong. If you're a Canadian listener, I don't know anything about Canadian history.
Well, also, Quebecois French is different than French.
Oh, I know.
So.
I know that for certain.
I went to Quebec once. It's nice.
I've only been to Vancouver and I've been to Niagara.
Yeah.
Vancouver's really nice, actually.
I've been to Montreal. It's very nice.
Also, one of the oldest settlements in Quebec, if I'm remembering this correctly, is where the Vikings actually landed.
Wow, there's a lot of history there. I'm sure Rick Riordan will tell us all about it when we go there and meet the wind, I guess. There's a lot to deal with. I don't know when they're going to finally leave on the quest. Like, jeezy crazy, we're several chapters in now, you guys. Like, we're on like the 14th chapter and we still haven't left the camp?
No, we have not left the camp. Though, you know what I'm scared about, B? Because we have so much Americana in the story. When we're going to get Kanakakana, I don't know what you would call it.
Kanada.
Empanada Kanadas?
Americana. So it'd be Kanada Kana. No, see, there's no fun little phrase that rolls off the tongue, huh?
You're going to get plenty of like Canuck influence. And I'm waiting for the Mountie, and I'm waiting for the moose and the beaver.
Mm-hmm. All the iconic maple syrup, poutine.
Tim Hortons? Are we going to get Tim Hortons?
Yeah.
I love Tim Hortons.
Some Timbits. We're just listing things about Canada that we know. Apparently not a lot. We don't know a lot about Canada.
B, what are you talking about? I know a lot about Canada. I have my Canadian girlfriend.
Oh, yeah. Is her name Georgina Glass by any chance?
Oh, I'm about to say, B, no, her name's Jillian Tropicana.
Oh, of course. Oy vey. Okay. Have we summed up basically everything from this chapter? Is there anything else, any stray observations you want to mention?
Oh, there is one stray observation, B. As you say that, like, why haven't they left for camp? Guess who comes back to camp with a dragon?
Oh, yes. So this is like sort of a connection to the last chapter we read about, Leo doing his fun little dragon taming exercise, I guess, and finding that spooky cave with all of like this old Hephaestus stuff, I guess. So he got the dragon, and that's like kind of where we leave off with the chapter is like, you guys, the dragon's back. So that seems to be what they're going to use as their method of conveyance to go on their quest. So it seems like they're leaving for their quest soon. I hope they leave for their quest soon, because honestly, there's been a lot of build-up. We've been in the camp for a long time, a lot of backstory. I want, and believe this when I say this, I don't normally advocate for a lot of action. I'm very interested in like these sort of like interpersonal scenes, but like, come on, guys, we need a little bit of action. What's happening?
Where's the murder, B? I need the murder.
Okay, I don't need the murder, but come on. Can we at least start walking in the direction of somewhere that isn't camp? We've been here for several chapters.
B, I'm excited for the next chapter when we see Chiron do his taxes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just like we do a flashback to Mr. D, and he's just like sipping some wine next to a pool. Like, we need to move forward a little bit.
Oh, no, we're talking about before they leave on the quest, they have to do roll call, and it's going to take like 3 hours to do.
Right, exactly. Talia, you here? Oh, no, she's with the hunters. Okay, Clarice, you here?
Percy, you here? Beckendorf, I forgot to scratch that name.
Sorry, yeah, sore subject. I love how we both made the same poor taste joke wherein they call out a dead man's name. Selena, oh no, her too, huh?
Oh no, B, stop. But next chapter, B, is a Piper chapter. Are you interested to see what Piper's reactions are finally to this?
I am interested to see how she reacts to all of this, because she has her own burden to bear, and now she needs to find out about Jason and his sister, and they already have this weird dynamic going on as it is with when she turned into Aphrodite's daughter and was all of a sudden in a scantily clad outfit she wasn't too comfortable in.
No, B, I just thought of something really bad. Do you think they're going to do the trope where Piper sees Thalia and thinks that Jason has the hots for her?
Oh God, I hope not. I mean, have you read this book before? You have, right? But you just don't
It's
really
been a
remember.
while. It's been a very long time since I've done Heroes of Olympus.
It's been a while, so we don't know, but I hope that's not the case. I'm just really tired of girls being mad at other girls because they're paying attention to a somewhat mediocre teen boy. Like, who cares? Who cares who's paying attention to Jason? As it is, we already have this weird love triangle with Piper and the awkward fake boyfriend thing, and then we have, what the heck's her name? The one who we don't... Drew. We have Drew, who's, like, weirdly obsessed with him.
I'm about to say Drew Struzan, but that's wrong because that's the
Right.
person that does all the
Not
movie
that
poster
person.
for like Star Wars or Back to the Future.
Regardless, I don't want any more of it. I don't want her to get jealous. I get she's a daughter of Aphrodite, but she's also smart. Like, she's not going to get all, like, weird and jealous. I don't know. She's older, too. She's not Annabeth. I mean, not to roast Annabeth again, but, like, let's be honest, she had some weird jealousy issues back in the day, and I just, like, I don't need a retreading of that story. I don't need a love triangle. I don't need people obsessing over who Jason loves. First of all, Jason, he doesn't even know who he is. He's busy. He can't date anybody right now. Like, back off. He's like a teen who just found out his last name like half an hour ago. Like, give him a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Hopefully there isn't. I'm gonna like be very transparent and say I don't remember much about this book, and I don't remember most of the other ones. Like, again, this is very fresh to me because I'd always just read Percy Jackson, so this is interesting.
So you and I are both in the dark now. In some ways, we're on level footing because you have forgotten a lot of this, and I am more versed in Percy Jackson than I used to be when I first started the first series, so we're kind of like meeting in the middle in some ways.
Yeah, and that's fine because we have plenty of stuff that we can easily meet in the middle about. And also, like, when it comes to this book, it actually gives me a chance to actually kind of appreciate it in a different light because I didn't read it as much as the other ones.
Right, like, because now you also get to kind of, like, make guesses and figure stuff out while you don't, like, just know everything that's happening.
It's more like I'm basing it off of, like, past Rick Riordan and seeing, like, what works, what doesn't in that way.
Right, not, like, just assuming, or, like, not just guessing based on things you already remember, which is it's kind of fun. It's, like, I like the position that I'm in as someone who's new to this because I get to go into it completely new and I don't have any preconceived ideas about what's going to happen. Like I said, though, really, these chapters have been going on for very long, but there's a lot of backstory. I love that for sure. That's like my favorite thing about like these kinds of books where, you know, there's a lot of like really interesting world building happening and they're all trying to like figure out what's going on with their various complicated identities. But like I said, we're on chapter 14. How many chapters are in this book?
We're 100 pages into this book and we haven't moved.
And we haven't left the camp. So, like, I'm ready to move on. Hopefully they leave for their quest soon. I'm interested to see how Piper reacts to the dragon. Also, are they going to talk to Leo about his fire powers? Is he going to reveal that soon? I hope so, because it's like, how did you get the dragon otherwise, dude? Like, of course you're impervious to fire. That's, like, the only way you could. So, you know. I'm a little tired of the lying too, but I guess that's going to go on for a little bit longer, I imagine.
The way that I look at this book series is that it's a very slow burn to begin with. Like, especially with this book series, I'm sure it was pre-planned. Like, he wanted it to be like 5 books. So there's like that thing of like, I want to set things up. But now that people have read the series, like they want to see what's happening at camp. Whereas like in the original Percy Jackson, it isn't like that's a discovery for everybody. Now it's just like, I want to catch up with my new friends. And that's kind of the hardest part about this, isn't it? Like we're slowly getting on the adventures. I think probably within the next, hopefully 100 pages, we're on the adventure. I want to go to Canada. I want Leo to like fist fight a beaver and not win. Or you know what the best part is, B? We can go to the mall, everybody.
Are they going to meet the ghost of John Candy? I just watched some John Candy movies, so that's why he's in my brain.
Which John Candy movies?
The Great Outdoors.
I like that movie.
Yeah, it's on. I have it as a double feature on a DVD with Uncle Buck. It's a good DVD.
Are they going to meet Ryan Reynolds? Because he's Canadian.
Right, yeah. Or there's a lot of famous Canadians. Jim Carrey, isn't he Canadian?
Yeah, he's Mike Myers is Canadian.
Yeah.
I'd say Justin Bieber, but please no.
Oh, right, he's Canadian too. I forgot about that.
Drake's Canadian. He also records out of a cookie factory.
Are they going to meet the cast of Degrassi? That would be great.
That'd be great. Wait, I just thought of someone. Oh, Avril Lavigne is Canadian.
Oh, of course. I mean,
you know who they're going to meet, B?
Okay.
They're going to meet the greatest band of all time.
Oh, are you going to say Nickelback?
Nickelback.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Did you see that tweet that was like, oh, did you hear that Chad Kroeger and Avril Lavigne are getting married? I thought that it was illegal. I thought that same sucks marriage was illegal. Which you can tell how old that tweet is. But anyway.
But Nickelback's Canadian, so maybe we'll get the, oh God, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. So B, on that note, do you want to read some listener emails?
Hi, Zach and B. My name is Amber. I'm a 13-year-old from a small town in the middle of nowhere and allegedly a big nerd. I just want to say how much I love your podcast. Listening to it day and night makes me happy. I only started listening last year and I've been catching up to you guys ever since. I found out about PJO in around 3rd grade, but never had interest in it. Then in 4th grade, I started reading more fantasy-type books, which led me to mythology. Now that I'm in 7th grade, about to go into 8th, I've finished every single book, PJO, Heroes of Olympus, TOA, which one is that?
Trials of Apollo.
Trials of Apollo, Baghdad's Chase, Kane Chronicles, every PJO sidebook, and Rick Riordan Presents. Wow, you are
That's
a voracious
a lot of
reader.
books.
We certainly have not even gotten close to that far. It really has brought me a long way in elementary school, and I plan on continuing my hobby in high school, which brings me to you guys, Zach. I just want to say that your jokes are really cheesy and you make me giggle in my sleep, which I know is edgy. I don't plan to wake my 7-year-old brother up. You really brighten my day or night or either way. I think you were the right pick for the show. I have gotten a lot of... Wait, Zach was the right pick? Technically, I was the right pick for the show because he picked me.
Yeah.
This was your idea. Well, you pitched a couple ideas to me, but yeah.
I pitched a couple ideas, but this is the one that actually stuck, and I think this is our best idea.
I'm glad I chose it for sure. I lost my place. Right, you really brighten my day or night. Either way, I think you were the right pick for the show. I've gotten a ton of people into PJO, but never gotten such a deep perspective from someone who has never read it before. That's right, children. I'm talking about B. You and Zach are a perfect combination of funny and serious that it's the most absolute right thing for this podcast. I'd never think I'd be so attracted to a podcast. Thank you guys for reading this long email. You guys are awesome. Wow, thank you, Amber.
We're a real, when it comes to our show, I think we're a real, this could be just a reference, we're a good April and Andy from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the other thing you pitched me? I forget. It was like 2 series.
It was the King Killer Chronicles, and then the other one was, I think we just read like a fantasy book, and then we talked about it.
Right. Yeah, mainly you were like these 2 series. And I was like, Percy Jackson, I've heard that somewhere, but I never read it. So sure, let's go for it. And honestly, pretty glad I chose that. That seemed to be a good choice for the 2 of us.
Yeah, because you were winding down on Unfortunate Associates, and I had just dissolved the other podcast I was doing.
Yeah, we were both in a good place to start a new podcast. And I was like, I can talk about kids' books, even if I haven't read them. So that's what we did. And it ended up working out pretty well.
Thank you so much, Amber, for that amazing email. We really appreciate it. I'm glad that you laugh at my cheesy jokes. My jokes are really good. You'll never forget about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, see, it's a cheesy joke.
Yeah, one could say that they're grating.
So the next email is from Seth. Hey, Zach and B, I'm a longtime listener and love your show. The format is great, and I'm glad that you don't talk just about the events in the chapters, but investigate parallels in other pop culture media, too. Fantasy is my favorite genre, and I'm always glad when Zach references Sanderson, Pullman, etc., etc. I hope it'll get you all a new set of readers into the series. I've consistently been about a book behind, but I noticed that you started reading Heroes of Olympus. I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. Heroes of Olympus is the chicken soup of books for me. I reread them all again and again in times of sickness and in health. I can't wait for B to meet everybody. P.S. I grew up on Roald Dahl, both his children and adult book series, and I feel you, B. P.S.S.S. The episode I'm on right now, Zach is talking about seeing cats at New Year's, and B says, yeah, better to get it over with, start the year off on a low note, but I can't really get much worse from here.
Oh, no. Okay, people keep quoting me about being like, 2020 can't be so bad. Listen, I didn't know, okay? I'm sorry.
Stay mortal, stay safe, and keep horsing around, Seth.
Oy vey, I'm so sorry, you guys. Listen.
We didn't know.
It was wishful thinking. What was I going to do? Say that 2020 was going to be bad?
No, you don't. You don't say any of that.
You hope for the best here.
But to answer your question, ironically, while you sent me this about Sanderson, I'm actually rereading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson because I'm getting ready for the new book that comes out in November, Rhythms of War. So I just love Brandon Sanderson. He's like one of my favorite authors. Philip Pullman does his Dark Materials. I just actually finished watching the HBO show, and oh my god, is that great. If you haven't had a chance to watch it and you have HBO Max or just HBO, go watch it. It's worth the time. I loved it. It was great. And if you like Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda's in it, and he's really good in that show too, as one of my favorite characters in the books. So on that note, B, did we get any other emails?
Hello, Mr. Zach and Miss B. I'm a listener of the series for a while, and when this comes out, this will probably be the next episode. I'm all caught up in the series and the books. I also want to make a podcast. Do you two have any pointers for people? I think later on in the book, you will get to know them better than getting bits and pieces of it. It's a struggle. It's a struggle bus to read the book from different point of views, but I believe you can get through it. Love y'all with all my heart. Keep staying mortal. Love, Joshua. Thank you for the email, Joshua. Just a heads up, I am not a miss. You could use Mr., I guess, or mix. I'm non-binary and trans. Just a heads up. I know you probably didn't mean to misgender me, but for future reference, anybody sending an email. As for advice on how to make a podcast, I feel like Zach could probably help you more with the technical side of things. As for the actual hosting side of things, just follow your heart, I guess. Do something that you're interested in. And hopefully you have enough, knowledge and expertise and enthusiasm that you could make it work. And again, if you learn how to edit yourself, then you can always cut down what you say to be a little bit more, engaging if you tend to ramble like Zach and I do. But that's kind of like...
You'd honestly be surprised the amount of edits that I do. Like our show
usually...
Yeah,
the amount of edits that we do, it's a lot. We get very sidetracked. You think we get sidetracked on the Finnish podcast? We probably talked about Baja Blast way longer than you thought we did in this episode.
B, don't you want to crack open a nice Baja Blast with me? You know what? Take
please,
that back.
Are we sponsored by Baja? No, can we just get a sponsor?
You know what I'm mad about Canada? Go back to Canada. They have cans of Baja Blast. We don't. I have to go to Taco Bell.
Oh, wow. It's all connected, isn't it? It's all connected.
Is connected.
They also have Dunkaroos, I think. Speaking of Dunkaroos. We're so obsessed with food. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. That's kind of my best advice about like hosting a podcast. As far as the technical things, I mean, there's a lot of like, tutorials you can look up. I'm sure you could probably reach out to Zach and other podcast people who, aren't too big, who could like give you a few pointers as far as like what kind of equipment to use and how to record.
Yeah, so like when it comes to like podcasting stuff, when it comes to equipment, it might seem very like, what we're gonna do first is most mics will do. Like what I like to say to people that are starting off, if you want to try it, I recommend the Blue Snowball. I recommend Yetis. I recommend like things like if you're like trying to be budget friendly.
Yeah, like pretty affordable. I wouldn't like immediately invest in something really expensive. My first microphone was a Samson Q2U, I think, which comes with just a regular like table stand, but I would recommend a swing arm just because you will mess up your back if you don't have a swing arm microphone. And believe me, I did it for way too long. So,
and the microphone that I'm using when I started was actually just a regular Shure SM58, which is just like a regular like handheld microphone that you would get from like Rock Band.
As long as it's like a legible microphone and...
Well, no, it's not that. It's not... So it's like, I'm just using a Harry Potter reference. The wand doesn't make the wizard makes the wand. Is that you can have a really bad microphone. It's where you actually are recording. Is it like not with like tiles or anything? Like I'm recording in like a recording booth now. But back then I was recording in a closet with like blankets and things that like helped like
absorb the
sound. Yeah. And I like to do also like if you're starting off at podcasting, and this is my golden advice, please, for the love of gods, leave about 10 to 20 seconds of just dead air, of like just silence where you're not talking, so you can get room tone. So if you're using a program like Audacity, which is free,
you could just get rid of that. It's really great.
And it makes everything sound good. Like the microphone that I'm using right now is the Shure SM7B, which is a lot of money. And, even with like this microphone, you can make it sound really bad really easily.
If you don't get rid of the room tone, because then it's just like
What's the point of having like a
vague
$600
static
microphone
in the background? So that's like a good bit of advice. I'm sure that you could look all this up, but those are kind of the general things. It's like, believe it or not, podcasting seems kind of intimidating, but I feel like it's a very democratized medium. A lot of people can do it. It's like pretty accessible. You can get a lot of the equipment for not too expensive. Like, you know, it's not the most expensive hobby in the world. You can get really expensive with it, but as far as like a beginner goes, you know, you can really start off small and build from there.
What I like to do as well is I call this the piggy bank hobby, where it's like you buy things first and then you start saving money up in your piggy bank. So when you start to like get better and better at doing what you're doing, because when I first started podcasting, I sounded awful. Like I couldn't speak. And there's a lot of times where like very disorganized and wasn't sure what to edit and what to keep in. And I think we found like this healthy blend now. Like this is my 4-year doing podcasting. I think I started in 2016, and you know, you get better every chance of the way. Like you could read books about it, but it's more about practice. Like just doing it and making sure that what you're doing is a quality product in your eyes. And then you'll look back like 4 years down the line and be like, oh my God, I can't hear this podcast. Because I remember the first time that I recorded a podcast, I had recorded it at such a low volume. I was like really concerned about no one's going to be able to hear this. And I had amplified everything and it sounded like hot garbage. And there's things that you can do, and there's a lot of good resources. The one big resource I will give everybody is if you're not sure about something like how to start a podcast, just type it in on YouTube and watch like a 20-minute video.
Yeah, there's tons of information out there. I'm sure you could find all sorts of tutorials.
But thank you so much for that email. So I have an email. This one's from Emmy. Hey, it's Emmy, 17, child of Aphrodite. I would use a giant scythe as a weapon. I'm 5'2", so wielding a giant scythe would be hilarious. I've gotten a mixed bag of an email for you. First of all, the uwus were hilarious and I love them.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad someone liked them. Robert roasted us on the internet.
Isn't cur a slur for a dog? C-U-R. So if you call someone a cur, you're calling them a dog. Mrs. Kerr, I'm so sorry, that is your lot in life. Kerr is spelled, if I'm remembering it correctly, in the books, Kerr, not C-U-R.
Wait, okay, is that the name?
That's the, so I got this in like the correct thing for like the live stream. Mrs. Kerr was the teacher that Mrs. Dodds replaced.
Oh, right.
So this was the first book, first chapter.
Yeah, listen, I don't remember anything from that, practically. It's a miracle I remember the plot of The Lightning Thief, and most of the time I remember it because I saw the musical twice.
Yeah, so to continue, headcanon Interruptus is blackmailing Chiron, so he can't tell them anything. And Jason, Zoe's long-lost brother, Piper has joined forces with Rachel, persuading people to donate her their kidney so Rachel can sell them. And Leo is trained to take over the Earth Kingdom with Prince Zuko. Well, that's a crazy headcanon.
I haven't watched Avatar in a very long time, so I wouldn't be able to.
So I finished Avatar, and I want to say maybe
that
2
sounds
sittings.
About right. A lot of people are binging it right now. I should probably binge it again because I haven't. I don't know if I ever finished it when I was a kid.
Oh, I finished it, and I used to have parties with Legend of Korra, but yeah, Avatar came out like the season finale or the series finale. I remember was a huge event. I was so excited that entire week. It was great. Man, just watch Avatar, especially like right now. It's best time. If you haven't watched the show, it's the best animated series, period.
Bold words.
Oh no, I'll defend those words with my dying breath.
You heard it here first.
So I have to redact some of this, unfortunately.
Oh, because of spoiler Oilers.
Yeah. I was reading Fable Haven, and there's a scene where Seth, Kendra, and their grandma are going to see the troll to help rescue their grandpa. They pass by the lotus flower, and Seth says they smell sweet. Grandma warns them not to eat them because eating them will cast a dreamlike state where you will lose sense of time and importance, and thought this was really cool bit of lore. Fable Haven is steeped in ancient myths from all cultures, so I thought it was really cool to see symbols of the lotus tied to Percy Jackson, as it really shows how much research Riordan does. I think the reason a lot of whimsy isn't being focused on with Jason and the rest of the demigods are older now, and they're making things a lot better. They aren't as taken aback by everything. While Percy is 12 years old and is amazed by everything, Jason's 16 years old and isn't flooded by everything, both because he's obviously already a accustomed to it, but also because he's older. Leo is one of the most experiencing the most wonder, but he's also accustomed to weird things happening, as evidenced with his flaming hands. Piper, she's got her own stuff going on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've kind of established that they're probably just jaded. That's part of it for sure. Like the grittiness factor is already ratcheted up based on how old they are, the type of books these are, how the story is told. It's like, again, it's like the Harry Potter thing where it's like, if Harry Potter's like a little kid going to Hogwarts for the first time, it's like, oh, it's magic. You get to escape your horrible, abusive living situation and you get to come to magic school where you get abused slightly differently, but there's flying. And that's kind of this case with Camp Half-Blood where it's like, seems pretty cool when you're like a young traumatized kid, but once you're a little older, you get more jaded to the idea.
Well, also it's like the idea of like being a teenager, like 16, 17, and going to a summer camp. I feel like at that age seems really silly. Like you wouldn't take it as much wonder as a kid that's like 12 or 11.
That's true. I didn't go to summer camp when I was 16.
I stayed home and played Gears of War 3.
Yeah, at that age, you're not really doing that kind of thing unless maybe you're a counselor. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's something about like the setting that it's very different depending on the age you are, which I guess kind of contextualizes Luke's character a little bit too. Like he seemed pretty jaded to the whole thing similarly because he was like pretty old by the time we encounter him as a character.
That's baby stuff. Don't go to camp.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah, and like you said, like the listener said in the email, they're so old that they've already kind of encountered some weird magic stuff, so they're like less shocked too. Like Percy is just beginning to kind of like put together the pieces of who he is when he goes to camp. Well, you know, Jason obviously has gone on a quest before. He doesn't know who he is, but there's like this inkling of understanding these things. You know, when Chiron explains everything to him, he already knows implicitly that the gods are real and all of this other stuff. With Piper, she's already experienced things with like her persuasion abilities because of being a demigod child of Aphrodite, and obviously Leo with his fire powers. So it's like they're accustomed to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they've all experienced already supernatural things, so their idea of skepticism is very diminished because they know that magical things are happening. Yeah, I would be like, I believe a unicorn or a Chiron exists when I can shoot fire from my hands. Like when you're doing stuff like that, there's more chance of like, I believe all this stuff, especially with teenagers, you want to feel like you're different, and when you have superpowers, that is like one of the reasons why people love Peter Parker. In that sense of when he's a teenager, he has superpowers and he loves being Spider-Man. Same as how demigods, at least with these people, you know, they see the supernatural and they take it at face value rather than evaluating the dangers at first. B, so I want to continue this email. You ready for this?
Yeah.
I like the one email about diversity in the Disney Plus PGO, but please do not change anything drastically. Selena and Clarice would be cool, but do it for heaven's sake. The reason the movies was so bad was because they completely changed the plot. Like B said, I think emphasizing the chemistry between Clarice and Selena would be cool, but don't change the plotline for diversity. Please just keep the plot intact. And yeah, deleting the black character for a white character so they can be queer in the show when they weren't in the book is sending some bad messages.
It doesn't work so great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of like a weird trade-off. We already talked about this, but that's kind of how I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we feel the same way about this. The whole idea of the Hunters of Artemis is how Artemis picks up women from all over the world to hunt with her. From that premise, that means that she should look and act diverse. So yeah, they can have an Asian hunter, they could have a black hunter, they could have a white hunter, they could have a trans hunter, etc., etc.
There's a lot of opportunities for diversity without changing the plot. Like, I don't think they're not mutually exclusive ideas. You know what I mean? You don't have to like completely delete Beckendorf as a character to imply that maybe Selena and Clarice have romantic chemistry. Like, both of those things can coexist and be interesting, you know?
But even at the same time, if we're looking at like that scene, like at that point in time, Clarice already has a boyfriend at that point. So it's like even more like, oh, I mean, yes, they can have like, you know, the dying
right, exactly. They can hint at something, which I mean, again, that you have to also be careful with that kind of thing, because if you just wedge in representation in an existing narrative, sometimes you accidentally play into the tropes you want to avoid. In the case of Clarice, if you make Clarice and Selena, but in the case of Selena, if you make Selena queer and then you kill her off, then you're all of a sudden doing the like kill your gays trope. You know what I mean? You have her her and Clarice confirm some sort of romantic attraction in like the throes of death, and then Selena dies, and like that's not the greatest representation. You know what I mean?
There's also like you do it like the 11th hour as well. It's like what is it? It's like called queer baiting. At the same time,
Right,
like
exactly. I don't really want that either. So I think that there's a way to make it diverse without wedging it in where it like wouldn't necessarily serve the plot or really even serve the cause of representation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like there, it's like you're like on like a tightrope when it comes to this stuff. Like, what is realistic compared to like what is like diversity, which is like a very tricky thing to do because I feel like when it comes to the series, it should be as true as possible to real life rather than we need to have like a checkbox, like, oh, we need to have it for this market or this market due to market research rather than just having the best people play those roles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we got into this before and we got into this with our roundtable discussion. There's a way to do representation and then there's a way to like, there's a bad way to do it. And I think that I trust that Rick would be mindful and thoughtful enough to like know which direction to go. And also I trust that maybe he would hopefully try to get some like diversity like sort of inclusivity like experts working with him to like understand how to incorporate that into a show.
I feel like that's going to be the Walt Disney casting department,
right,
which
exactly.
They actually have a very good job at casting people. Like, I know some people that work there, and that's one of their emphases is kind of like diversity.
I want them to do a thorough job of representing both the ethos of the story and also maybe updating it in a way that feels true to the real world and true to like 2020, you know, where we understand that people are not, you know, this homogenous group of people, you know?
They're not cookie cutter.
Right,
and
exactly.
I think when it comes to it as well, as like if you look at like, I'm basing this more off like the Disney parks and their promotional material, is that they're going towards that because the one thing I'll say about the Walt Disney Company and it comes to their casting department is they actually have very good people that they try to find and hire for a lot of their movies and stuff. And I'll just say like when it comes to them, I have better hands for them on certain things, whereas like there's other things they're not good at. And we'll just leave it at that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Disney has been very hit or miss when it comes to representation. So I kind of hope that it isn't, you know, like, it's not a blink and you miss it thing either, because that's, like, almost insulting.
Well, here's the difference, though, B, is that because it's on their own streaming platform, they don't have to, like, fall underneath, like, television.
Right, like, trying to get, like, other countries to, like, air their movies. Yeah, so it's a little bit different. I hope that allows them to be a little bit more inclusive. Thank you for the email. We're pretty much on the same page here.
No, B, we still have some more left on this email. I'm going to finish it real quick. And as a trans person myself, I'd love a trans character. But if it's not in the book, I don't want another coming out story, not only because I want being trans to be normalized, because if it's done badly, that's in the show of my favorite book series, and I have to watch that, and I don't want to watch the show, and it's a whole deal. I just want trans people to be normalized. Anyways, gonna get the LGBT representation in both this series and Magnus Chase. My favorite character is Nico in Heroes of Olympus. I have 2% battery, so I should probably stop before this gets any more long and confusing. Sorry if this is something came off the wrong way, but oh well. I'm willing to listen here where I might be wrong, and hopefully Disney doesn't completely ruin the TV show. Love you guys, Emmy. Buckle up. This series is going to get wild.
Yeah, we're on the same page because it's not like we got some email that was like, hey, we don't want diversity because you'll ruin the books. It's like, we do want diversity and we also want the plot to be sort of mostly intact. Not like, I mean, I'm not, you know, religiously dedicated to the text. You could change some things, I'm sure, but it's like, I think the general beats you can keep the same, and like there's a way to execute certain types of diversity in a way that, like, I don't know, makes sense for the existing plot and like doesn't completely rework everything.
When it comes to the way I look at it is I call this like tasteful diversity, where it's very realistic and it's like, oh, if you're at a summer camp, of course no one should like bat an eye who coming in.
Right. And also like you don't want like a tokenization either of like and here's the trans character, and like they make a big deal about it and like write an article about how there's a trans character, like just like we don't care. You know what I mean?
No, it's one of those things like it's easier if they don't explain that stuff. It's just on screen. They don't have to like, oh, look, here's this character. Here's Token, the Token character. What's his god power? He's the daughter or son of Token, the god of tokens. Like, stop it. We don't need that. Like, that's why I love, like, original Star Trek and I love Next Generation. They never explain that stuff. It's just, you take it at face value and you move on because it's in the future we're better than that, where it's not, you don't have those, you don't have those conflicts. They just like, oh, you're this person. Of course you're this person. We're going to move on because I know you're good at your job.
And honestly, like, I kind of want to live in a world where we could cast trans actors as just characters, and we don't need like a coming out story, kind of like the writer or the listener said. We don't need to like explicitly have like, this is a trans character and they're coming out to their mom and there's a whole big emotional thing, and it's like, maybe you could just have a trans actor play a character and they exist in this world and it's not a big deal. I mean, I know that the actor what's his name, Ian from the OA, I don't know how old he is now, but like, he even recently tweeted about how he would love to play Nico D'Angelo, and like, heck yeah, make him Nico. And like, you know what I mean? Like, that would be really awesome. And I don't think it would be like a big deal to like write in a new coming out story for Nico just because you cast a trans actor, you know?
See, I don't want it to be like special episode as well, where you have to explain that stuff, where it's like everyone has to like come in, the camera zooms in as like the whole cast comes in and explains everything.
No, we don't need a very special episode.
No, we don't. And I think we'll leave it at that when it comes to diversity. It needs to be very natural and can't be pandering, which is very easy to do. It's just called using a script and writing it.
Pandering, exactly. Enough pandering, enough queer baiting, enough pandering, enough like just really blink and you miss it fake moments of representation. We're all tired of it, basically. I think we're going to move on to the next email. Thank you for that email. That was very thoughtful.
Yeah, thank you so much for that email.
Hi, Zach and B. I just found out about this podcast, and it's absolutely amazing. I just reread the first series since a long time because of the Disney Plus announcement, and I've been binge hearing all of your episodes. Hearing you discuss each chapter is really fun and makes me think of many details from these books that I never thought of before. I don't want to make any questions because I'm just on book 3, and I don't know all the questions you've already answered, but I just wanted to thank you for your work because it's really just so good. I will keep hearing as fast as I can, and hopefully soon I will get up to date. Also, I'm a daughter of Apollo, so yeah, thanks so much, and keep staying mortal. Thank you for your message, though it says you're on book 3, so you're possibly not hearing this right now. But when you get caught up, thank you for your lovely email. I'm glad you're listening to us. A lot of people coming to us after the Disney Plus announcement, everybody getting excited for, I don't know, a TV show that's probably not going to come out for at least another 2 years, but we'll see.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sending in some listener emails. We do have a lot more. We're going to be reading them more in the coming weeks, so if you haven't heard yours, we're getting to them. We have quite a lot of enthusiastic fans sending in emails, but we really appreciate it also. Thank you guys so much. B, do you want to read some iTunes reviews?
We got a few iTunes reviews since our last episode. First one is from Sean, who says, best podcast in the world. Hi, my name is Sean, Ravenclaw House and Athena Cabin. I've been listening to this podcast since episode 1. Oh, wow, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Except I did not start when you guys started. I've been listening to this podcast for about 2 months now, and I've caught up. Me and my sister are doing the same thing you guys are doing in your podcast. Me, the person that knows, and my sister being the one who doesn't know anything. We read 5 chapters at a time, though. Then we pick a favorite chapter and listen to your podcast, then talk about the 5 chapters. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for doing what you're doing and keep staying mortal. Thank you, Sean. That's a very adorable activity to do with your sister. I'm glad you're doing that.
Thank you so much, Sean. That's amazing. I love it. So we have one from Katie that says, PGO series. Hello, fellow fans. My name is Katie, daughter of Athena, if I had got to choose, and I've been reading the series since middle school circa 2007, but I've been really enjoying the series and analysis. It's really cool to experience the myths and the stories through the fresh eyes, like B's, since I remember going into Greek mythology deep dive before reading PGO. My teacher at the time was really emphasized the fun of the Odyssey, Hercules, the whole oral tradition of telling stories about gods that might have been trying to warn one of the students that they were a half-blood, but I guess it wasn't me. Even when I knew how certain stories went to ancient times, I always enjoyed reading how they got subverted or fulfilled by Percy and the others. Reading has always been a form of escape for me, and I could always sympathize with Percy because I moved from school a few times growing up as well. I recently heard the roundtable about the Disney Plus series, and I really am hopeful that the fans won't be burned again like the movie. As for characters, I really hope that they stay true to the characters, but I think there's room to bring in different diversities and accessibilities into the series.
Like we just said.
Could Beckendorf have been injured in the Battle of Labyrinth and he needed a prosthetic limb? Could characters still have twinges of the wounds healed by ambrosia? I think it would explore the combat and has consequences remembering. I think that could explore combat has consequences and remembering to show the details what's really important. I really appreciate how much you want people to act kindly in reviews and how much you try to correct harmful statements in a supportive, guiding manner without putting them down in the OP. Thank you guys for the series. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you for your review. That was very nice. From the past, I love it. Hello, Zach and B. My old passion for Percy Jackson was sparked yet again when Rick announced Disney was making a show. It's so fun to listen to people talk about things I love, because these books meant so much to me when I was a kid. I was obsessed with Artemis for far too long, and even have a mini replica of the Diana of Versailles statue that's currently in the Louvre. Anyway, upon hearing the news of the show, I purchased a fresh new box set and started rereading the books, as well as stumbling across this podcast. Suffice to say, I love it. I work as a researcher in a physics lab, and when I'm doing menial tasks, I listen to your podcast, and it makes time fly so much faster. It's amazing to hear all your thoughts, theories, criticisms, and comments about stuff I never recognized when I read the series as a kid. The books somehow seem even better now. I would love to rant in great detail about how much joy it brings me to listen to you both, but I'm hoping that by the time you see this review, you will have heard all the reasons why this podcast is amazing in some way already. I've been binging the podcast from episode 1, but I'm only just now getting to see Monsters episodes, hence why I'm from the past. Can't wait to get all caught up, and I'm quite happy that I have so many to listen to. I know you are currently reading The Lost Hero, though to me that's far in the future. Here are my thoughts. When I first read Lost Hero when it came out, I wasn't a huge fan because I miss Percy so much. It's hard for me to get into any sequel series, even though I really love the way Rick extended his universe beyond just Greek mythology and just Percy Jackson. But I'm glad I stuck with it, and I did eventually fall in love with the new characters of Heroes of Olympus, though Percy and Annabeth are still superior. Even though The Lost Hero is not my favorite of the books, I just know when I get to those episodes, you guys will make me love and appreciate with your wonderful insight. See you in the future. Stay amazing. What a very nice review. Thank you.
That's such a really great review. I love when people are like, I listen to it while I'm doing quantum physics, so I work in like a research place. I'm like, what? Oh man, there's people that are smarter than us, like doing this stuff.
Yeah, genius people writing in. I was like, oh, you're very smart, and I'm just a lowly boo-boo the fool, just trying to figure out stuff about mythology that probably literal, like, third graders know better than I do. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, it's exactly like with me, but I do have to give a shout out, because one of my friends that I met on Xbox Live just became a doctor yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, not a doctor like fixing wounds, but like he's like a doctor in like...
A PhD is something.
He has a PhD, yeah.
Dang.
And what it is, he was explaining it to me, but I was just so excited. So now I get to call my friend Dr. Magnus, and that's amazing. But thank you so much for that amazing review. We have one more for this week, B. Are you ready for this one? So this one's from Kaylin. This is Kaylin, who emailed last week. Zach and B addressed the complaint I lodged extremely articulately, and I felt listened to, and they held their own very well. Thank you for making distinctions and accepting a criticism validly and explaining about the behind-the-scenes aspect of the show that makes some things happen the way that they do. Thank you, hosts. You're awesome.
Wow, thank you. I'm really glad.
Thank you. That's a really nice
appreciate
email.
that response. I never know how that's going to go over when we get an email. We really don't want to upset you guys, especially if you really like the show and you have a sincere complaint. We really want to listen to you. It's a very careful balancing act, and we hope we don't seem too defensive sometimes. So I'm really glad that you felt listened to. We want to listen to everybody. We want to both listen to everybody and make only concessions that make sense, I guess. It's a complicated place to be in, but I really appreciate that you messaged us back.
Yeah, normally we get like a 50-50. They're like, you're poopy heads, or wow, that was really nice of you to say that. I really appreciate it. Like there's like that weird 50-50. We try to be, the best way to put this is very civil when we try to give criticisms in that way, and we respect everyone for sending in emails. And we like to listen to you all. Like, we try to read as many as we can in the episode. The reason why we don't just spend 45 minutes doing it is we try to keep a time limit for how long our episodes are.
Right, yeah. We certainly have other stuff to respond to in upcoming episodes. So again, if we didn't read your review or your email, we promise it is coming up. But I'm just, that's, when we get messages like this, it makes me so happy, because I want you guys to know that we really do care what you think, and we don't want to be dismissive of when you have something to say. So
we don't want 90s villain laugh.
Yeah, no, exactly.
What a dork.
There's a complicated balance that we have to take here, but we certainly don't want you to feel we're stepping on any toes or like making you feel like you don't matter. Because, you know, you're like more than half of the experience of a podcast. Without an audience, we are just weirdos with a microphone talking into the ether and nobody's listening. So
some people like that, some people don't.
yeah.
For us, we love our community. I think we have some of the best people in the entire world that listen to our show.
No, we have truly the best listeners. We get very cool emails, very interesting, thoughtful insights that I definitely didn't think of while I was recording. Some of you are extremely smart and like very I don't know, thought-provoking in ways that I couldn't have even anticipated.
My biggest fear now is some listeners going to come in and get me like cases and cases of Baja Blast at my doorstep.
Oh yeah, can we just like, can you guys like at Mountain I don't even like Baja Blast. It's just a meme at this point is what we're doing. I don't drink soda. I'm a very boring person. Can we get a sponsorship from like Polar Seltzer or something? I'm like an old man. I want seltzer.
I'm just imagining like Willy Wonka and the Baja Blast factory where like you go in and there's the river of Baja
You
Blast.
drank the fizzy lifting drink. Good day, Charlie.
Oh no, Charlie, we have to grind on that half pipe. Grind, Charlie, grind.
We always reference Willy Wonka. It's like embedded in our brains.
Well, because
forever.
it's such a great movie.
It's such
perfect.
a good movie, you guys. Anyway.
You know what movie that wasn't a good movie before we end?
A lot of movies.
Artemis Fowl. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, I heard that was a real stinker, huh? Good thing we didn't choose to do an Artemis Fowl podcast. Well, you almost did one.
I almost did one. Yeah, I almost did one with your ex. You know what? That would have been so fitting.
Yeah, whew. Ha, ha, ha. Wouldn't have that been really awkward if that kept being a thing?
Yeah, it would have been awkward, but what I'll say about this is I had some adult nectar, and I was watching the movie, and I was just live tweeting one of my friends, because I'm really happy that was a Disney Plus movie now. I would have loved to have seen that movie in theaters with my friends, but it was so bad. And don't judge that by the merit of a show, because they're two different mediums. But man, was that movie bad. Judi Dench knows how to pick winners. It was Cats.
I know. What is... She's just like, I have been crowned a dame, and now I shall be in nothing but garbage.
Yeah, exactly. She was the queen of the fairies.
I guess you don't get crowned a dame. What happens when you get... She got knighted, I guess? She got knighted as a dame? How does that work?
I don't know. I don't know what it's like being a female knight, because it's not... You're not called Sir Judi Dench. Dame Judi Dench?
No.
I don't know how that works.
That'd be kind of cool, though. Sir Judi Dench. Wow,
yeah,
I'm like
see,
having
I can't
some
say
real
that's hard.
Vaguely Sir Judi Dench. That's like a tongue twister and a half. Anyway, it would be cool if she had a sword. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool. Judi Dench had a sword and rode horseback, like just waving it around.
After she left the James Bond series B, she's like, these are the type of movies I want to make.
But for some reason, she's still dressed as old Deuteronomy.
No, that's exactly what she does. I mean, I know there's like a TikTok where like her grandson talks to her and she's like, what's a meme and stuff. Like, that's just what it is. Those are the type of movie she's watching. But on that note, if Judi Dench visits you as Deuteronomy or the Queen of the Fairies, just say hi to her, because I feel like she's probably really cool. B, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman, and you can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphhalfblood@gmail.com. You can also follow our show on Twitter at halfblood_radio. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/radiocamphhalfblood. We also have a t-shirt place, so go to TeePublic and just type in www.tpublic/radiocamphhalfblood to get some shirts. Well, I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And let's get some Baja Blast. See ya, everybody.
No, please, anything but Baja. Can I have some seltzer?
No, we're getting Baja Blast.
Okay.
See ya.